Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Arrow, A Generation of Vipers. This is by Clay Griffith and Susan Griffith, and it's from Titan Books. Now this is the follow-up to The Flash, The Haunting of Barry Allen. Now in that book, there's a group of rogues attacking Central City. The Flash is trying to fight them, but Barry Allen, when he runs, he does something that they call blurring, which means whenever he's running really fast, not every time, but often enough for it to be a problem, whether he's fighting villains, helping civilians, or just trying to get somewhere really fast, he'll blur, which means he freezes, and he's vibrating really fast, so he's blurry, and in his mind, he's seeing dead people. It's draining this blur effect is draining the speed force. It's going to kill him. So 4 or 5 rogues attacking Central City. Barry's got this problem with blurring, so Team Flash calls in Team Arrow, who come to Central City to help out. Oliver Queen is teaching Barry some meditative tricks to help him fight off the blurs. And in the end, they defeat the rogues, but Barry is still blurring. And that's where we are at the end of the first book, and then we get to this book, Generation of Vipers. So, we've still got Team Flash, Team Arrow. They're in Central City. Everybody's trying to figure out how to save Barry. Green Arrow is out in the streets fighting crime, and they discover that there's possibly a machine that could be used to help Barry. And the only known, at this point, the only known machine of this nature is in a country called Markovia, which is not friendly with the United States. It's run by Count Wallenstein. So Team Arrow, along with parts of Team Flash, are thinking of going to Markovia, but they end up in Star City, and it's possible they might find one of these machines in Star City, so they're looking for that. Someone from Oliver Queen's past shows up to stop them, and they end up eventually having to go to Markovia, and there's all sorts of intrigue and bad guys and also and action, of course. So that's your nutshell right there for A Generation of Vipers. And I enjoyed this book. I've mentioned before. I'll put a link for my review of the Flash book up here somewhere. And in there I mentioned I watched The Flash. I've seen every episode. I do not watch Arrow. I've only seen 3 episodes that weren't crossover episodes with The Flash. So I've seen maybe half a dozen total, mainly because of the crossover episodes, but I've seen a few that weren't. I watched when Constantine was on, and I watched the episode that introduced Barry Allen. But so I have much greater knowledge of the Flash characters and Central City than I do of Arrow and Oliver Queen and Star City as far as the TV shows go. I read both comic books, but they don't sync up. So I was kind of going into this a little bit blind, and it's really, I think they capture the characters. I mean, again, I think I've seen enough that I can say they captured the Arrow characters pretty well, and they do a good job with the Flash characters. Once they get to Star City, as far as Team Flash goes, you've got Barry Allen and Cisco. I think they're the only 2 that go to Star City and eventually to Markovia. But you've got Green Arrow, Felicity Smoke, John Diggle, who's Spartan, Thea, who is Speedy. I was going to say Red Arrow, but Speedy. all working together, trying to find this machine that will save Barry's life. And at first, again, they're in Star City. Lots of really nice action set pieces. And then once they get to Markovia, the tone changes a little bit to not kind of a caper, I suppose, because they're trying to get this machine away from Count Wallenstein. As usual, I don't know if they still do it every episode. There are flashbacks for Oliver Queen, and the first few are pre-Jungle, which I found really interesting. Seeing Oliver being this, he's not that spoiled. He's still a pretty relatively decent guy, the way he's portrayed here. But it's interesting to see him not having any fighting skills, really. So that was kind of fun. And then there are some flashbacks that are in the jungle. I don't know, again, because I don't watch the show. I know there's lots of jungle flashbacks. I know there's lots of post-jungle flashbacks. I don't know how often they flash back to pre-jungle Oliver Queen. So it was fun for me, anyway, to see that. It wraps everything up nicely. One of the things with media tie-ins like this, you know nobody important is going to die, so you just have to enjoy the ride until they solve whatever problem it is they have. I mean, this takes place shortly, I think it's shortly after the beginning of season 2 of The Flash. I don't know what season that corresponds to for Arrow, but we know that Barry has stopped Reverse Flash and closed the wormhole, whatever it was, that appeared at the beginning of, or excuse me, the end of season 1. And there are a couple. There's the mention of Zoom, so not exactly sure where it fits in season 2, but I think it's got to be pretty early season 2. There's no mention of Jay Garrick, if I recall correctly, in the Flash book. I know there's none in here. So just kind of piecing it together. Not that it's that important, I suppose. So I do know Felicity and Oliver are a couple in this, and I'm pretty sure on the show they've broken up since then. Again, only know the crossover episodes, and it doesn't always get into the personal relationships because there's so much going on. It's Ray Palmer tech, but no Ray Palmer in the story for you Adam fans. Although this is probably pre-Adam, I don't know. John Diggle's wife is in here, so you've got Argus, all sorts of, just a lot of cool things from the shows. Cisco, one of my favorite characters on The Flash. I love him in these books. Barry, still the guy that's upbeat, or at least trying to project that he's upbeat. Oliver, the more stoic guy, trying to teach Barry how to meditate, really cracking down on him. And there's some character development, I think, in here. Again, because I don't watch the show, I can't say how much is pulled from TV, but Oliver has doubts about what he's doing with Barry. He's not sure that he's the best person to be teaching anybody anything. So again, don't know if that's pulled from the show, but it's nice to see Oliver being human. What I see is he's sort of, as the person with no powers, he's comes off as the least human, by which I mean the least emotional, except for maybe anger. But we do see sort of behind that Green Arrow mask in this story. The action, I think, is well done, well choreographed. I didn't notice any glaring errors. Some of these DC shows, some of the action set pieces don't really sit right with me, but I didn't feel that way when I was reading this. I think this is probably a really good, if this were an episode of the TV show, I would consider it a very good episode of the show. Now I'm going to go straight to my rating because I'm just sort of rambling. So Arrow, A Generation of Vipers, I give it 4 out of 5 boxing glove arrows. I don't know that Green Arrow in the show uses the trick arrows like he does in the comics, but the boxing glove is sort of a classic. So 4 out of 5 boxing glove arrows for Arrow, A Generation of Vipers. That rating's a little higher than what I gave The Flash. I only gave that 3.5 out of 5. And I have a theory about that. I enjoyed this book a little bit more. And I think it's because I've watched every episode of The Flash and haven't seen that many episodes of Arrow. So while I was reading the Flash novel, as much as I tried to avoid it, I think I was comparing it to the show, hearing the characters' voices in my head as I was reading the dialogue, but comparing it to what I'm used to. And I think I said it was maybe a fair to middling episode if it were to be an episode of the show. And because I'm not as familiar with the Arrow TV show, I didn't have that going on while I was reading this, and so I think that's why I enjoyed it a little more. I enjoyed the Flash book plenty, but I liked this a little bit more. And I could be completely off about my reasoning. Maybe this is just it's better written, but I don't think so. I assume it was all sort of written at the same time. So I wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily see leaps and bounds in the writing style or anything. I really think it comes down to being more familiar with the Flash than with Arrow, and so I was able to come into this with blinders on, without blinders on. I'm not sure which of one of those things it would be, but it was a little more fresh for me. Let's put it that way. So that's why this one gets 4 out of 5, and the last one got 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 out of 5 for the last one, 4 out of 5 for this one. But if you're a fan of either show, I say pick these up and read them. I have season 1 of Arrow on DVD. I have not watched any of it yet. There are a couple more Arrow novels out there. And I may have to, if they're as good as this, I might have to pick them up because this was really enjoyable. So that's kind of rambly. I don't want to get into details, like I said, and it's, it's a comic book TV show / novel. I'm trying to speak quickly like the Flash. So, again, lots of action, lots of interesting characters. I do like this character, and I don't know if he's from the show or if he's original to the book, but this character from Oliver's past that shows up again, I'm pretty sure he's original to this book. The way he's used, what he does, how things go, I'm assuming he was made up for this. But he's a very interesting character, and the dynamic between he and Oliver. His name is Gassi. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's Ghasi. But he was really an interesting character, and I loved the dynamic, the friendship that becomes enemyship. Yeah, I said enemyship. And Malcolm Merlyn is in here, which is always nice. I can easily picture John Barrowman, Captain Jack from Doctor Who and Torchwood. I've always liked him as an actor, and again, I know some of where he was, where he went, and I'm not sure where this fits as far as his whole character arc on the show, but it was nice to see him in here. His interactions with Speedy and the rest of Team Arrow. So All right. I think I've rambled enough about Arrow, A Generation of Vipers. Again, if you like the show, I really think you're going to like this book. I hope so. I'm coming at it from the opposite way. I don't watch the show, and I really liked this book. So hopefully it works the other way as well. I enjoyed the Flash book. Pick them both up. If you like comic books, if you're not even a fan of the show, but you like comic books, there's a lot of comic book novel stuff coming out. Marvel's really putting out a lot of comic book novels. DC, not really doing it, except for these media tie-ins. So you're going to have to grab them while you can. So that's it. I'll have a link for this, 1 or 2 links for this book in the description down below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be nice here. I'm trying to slow down. I've obviously been stumbling over my words. Trying to be like the Flash. Can't help it. Love that guy. Please like, share, and subscribe. And so I guess that's it. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.